Hi everyone. So this is sounding a little bit more complicated than it actually is. This is reading log 17 and it's actually 4 chapters, but each day is only 2 chapters and there's 2 smaller chapters. So we're good. All I still want you to write about is 6 sentences about all 4 chapters. Each day, 3 sentences to your reading log. This is reading log 17. Okay, this is chapter 22. Titled, Did Someone Say Deja Vu? And then the next chapter, 21. They poisoned me, damn it. Probably to trade my dead body to the barbarians for Wulfgar's safe return. Or maybe just for the fun of it. Both Sir Deming and Queen Adriana had insisted King Cedric had been fevered and delirious before he died. They had brought it up as rationale for why the king had named me his heir. But now I wondered what had killed him. And Kendrick, Deming had declared him much too interested in magic. Yeah, right. Much too interested in a certain magic user. I should have asked Oriel why her mother had tried to drown her. I stood up on the hillside overlooking St. John and screamed in frustration, which scared Dusty, though she still came up to me, just slower than usual, her tail giving a tentative little wag. I was glad that I wasn't being deep fried by the computer, but I could be if I didn't figure out. I lost my place. Figure out my way out of this convoluted, backstabbing, mean-spirited game. Sorry. Is everything all right, dear? My mother asked when I got to the bottom of the hill. Yeah, I'm just one with the morning, I told her. And my chosen advisor knows her meats. That's nice, my mother said. And she introduced me to Sir Deming, and I met my father, who was my favorite person in this game. And I went to the shrine of St. Bruce, the warrior poet. I spent my travel time working on remembering the poem I recited last time. I was beginning to suspect that St. Bruce would accept any poem a player made up, but I knew for a fact that he had accepted an ode to St. Bruce. I didn't think it was good poetry, but who was I to argue with a saint with a sword in his hand, so I recited it again, verbatim. St. Bruce was a warrior poet. He lived in a cave, don't you know it? He wrote sonnets and verses, but never said curses. He'll give you one chance, please don't blow it. Fredonia whimpered and flung herself out of the way, but then she always did. And I was waiting for her to say, he must be in a good mood, lucky you, he's accepted your poem, when I saw the sword begin its fatal swing down. So I want you to think about that. That's the end of the chapter, except for the email. Why didn't the St. Bruce, the warrior poet, accept this poem when he did the last time? And then I'm hoping you recall that it has to be an original poem. So you can't recycle and reuse your poem before. Yeah, it's original to you because you made it, but you have to make up a new one every single time. So Janine thought it was because she made it, it was original to her that she can use it again and again and again. But that's not the case. It has to be original poem. It has to be one you made each time. Put that in your reading log because that's on your test. Okay? Now, here's the email about 5 minutes later from the last one. Subject, urgent deadline, 5:25 at 4:17. From Nigel to the distribution list. Our numbers concur with Japan's. G and I may or may not have time to complete one more lifetime. There definitely won't be another chance. She is making a valiant effort, but may not be able to make up for the time lost in her initial attempts to break through level 1. Medical personnel standing by. Members of the press are aware that there is a situation, but don't have the details. Please remain calm and refer all questions to Jim in PR, who is preparing a statement. I will try to remain calm too, but I am sick at heart. So this is her last chance. If she doesn't win it, and she doesn't win it quickly, she's going to die in real life. Chapter 23. This is titled, Will the Guilty Parties Please Step Forward? Okay, so apparently when Fredonia warned that St. Bruce had a good memory, She didn't just mean he could recognize published poetry. Apparently, she meant a player had to make up a new poem each time. Thanks a lot, Nigel Rasmussen. Think you could have mentioned that? Okay, Hill, Deming, Dad, Shrine. The next time I stood in front of the statue, I recited a poem in a cave, offering up all my hopes on butterfly wings. Fredonia winced and ducked. She smiled and said, haiku. Yes, I said. St. Bruce likes haikus. Well, good. Except, how did I know there'd be an except? Except haikus are so very short. Suck at it, I corrected. Good word, she told me. Haikus is so very short that if a poet offers a haiku poetry, Bruce does like two. She smiled her brown toothed smile at me. A second poem? Did I mention the time limit? So on the spot, I made up another haiku. The statue of Bruce, silent but waiting to strike. Poem, do not fail me. Fredonia and I watched the sword. Not quite as good as the first one, but he must be in a good mood. Lucky you. If I were lucky, my father wouldn't have gotten me If I were lucky, my father would have forgotten my birthday. But apparently, I thought, as I hid the ring in my bodice, I had to make up my own luck one step at a time. So when at the castle, Rodon introduced himself, I wouldn't let him go this time. No, you'll come to the Great Hall with me, I told him. Oh, but you're meeting your family for the first time. This should be a very joyous, private occasion. I could have said, yeah, well, we both know it's not going to be, and anyway, I know where you're off to, you larcenous little weasel you. But I didn't. I just pleasantly said, I insist, as your new king. The royal family didn't care that I had brought a witness with me. They were just as irritable and snide as ever. I had been thinking about which family member I needed to choose as an ally. They each had a crack at killing me. Abbas had taken my head off in this very room. Wolfgar in his wolf shape had killed me in both the topiary maze and in the barbarian camp. And I was sure Kendrick had arranged for me to be poisoned, whether or not he was also behind the death of his father, King Cedric. So who to choose this time? Wolfgar was unpredictable unless I used the ring on him, so if I needed the ring later on, I'd be out of the luck. Abbas had prevented the barbarians from kidnapping me, which I had to believe was a good thing, except that in saving me, he had actually killed King Grimbald, which the barbarians seemed exceptionally reluctant to forgive. Was there a way to get Abbas to fight off the barbarians more gently? Abbas and gently in the same sentence? Right. Bringing me back to Kendrick, who had been my first choice all those tries ago, based on his good looks, which were, come to think of it, what had gotten me into this game to begin with. Kendrick. Well, Mr. Rasmussen had warned me away from him, or maybe not. Kendrick and Sister Mary Ursula don't work well together, he had said. Maybe all he meant was that the pairing needed a little bit of extra work. How many more times could I afford to be wrong? Kendrick, I called as the royals dispersed, may Counselor Rodon and I walk with you? At which point Rodon said, you know what would be nice? Why don't you two have a cozy little chat? No. I linked arms with both him and Kendrick. Let's all three of us walk together and get to know one another. Tell me, each of you, your impressions of King Cedric. They both looked startled and maybe a little bit worried at that thought. I said, Rodon, you first. Oh, Rodon blustered. Well, what do you mean? I haven't had a chance to know my father. It's very difficult to grow up without a father, you know. So many things make no sense if you don't have a dad. Those mushy Father's Day cards in June. Father Christmas, our Father who art in heaven. They were looking at me as though my brain were dribbling out of my nose. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Was he a good man? Fair? Did he have any faults, like was he overly trusting, perhaps? By then, we were out of the courtyard. There was the supply wagon, though no barbarians were lurking behind them for a moment. And there was Captain Penrod and the other guard, yet again dragging the poacher boy between them. "Oh, look," I said. "I wonder if this is something we need to make a decision about. Hello, Captain. I'm Princess Janine. What's happening here?" Penrod said, "We caught this boy poaching. He killed a deer. The usual punishment." Before Kendrick could ask me what I thought, I turned to Rawdon and asked, "What do you advise, counselor? Are you an advocate for strict interpretation of severe laws to deter crime?" Now, just remember, here's a little footnote now. The boy was poaching or stealing a wild deer. Rawdon has been stealing the entire kingdom's treasury. So if he agrees with this law, and the boy was going to be put to death for poaching a deer, imagine what's going to happen to him for all the treasury. So let's see how he responds. I saw Rawdon gulp, his voice faint and maybe wobbling just the slightest bit. He said, "The law is the law." The boy sniveled. "No, I didn't do nothing. I found him dead already. I was dressing him down so the meat wouldn't go to waste, but I didn't kill him." I pressed Rawdon. "So there's no room for compassion for one who has foolishly done wrong, then come to sincerely regret his crime?" "I wouldn't say that," Rawdon whispered. "No, I wouldn't think you would," I thought. I saw that Kendrick was watching Rawdon appraisingly, no doubt wondering what had rattled him. I said, "Of course, in this case, we don't even know for sure that he is accused of what he is accused of is guilty. Or do we?" I turned to Penrod. "Did you witness any actually seeing him kill the deer?" "No witnesses, but look at his hands," Penrod said. Good point. But then he admitted he was dressing down the deer once it was already dead. This is a difficult decision without witnesses. Do we know for sure, for a fact, how the deer died? How long it had been dead? "There was an arrow in its guts, and the body was still warm," Penrod said. "You're very good at details," I told him. His manner was friendlier, too. Once I didn't simply dismiss him or declare him wrong and the boy free. "Was the boy carrying a bow?" "Yes," Penrod said. The boy hastily said, "I found it. It was just laying there like on the ground, at the edge of the clearing, and I picked it up, and before I started in on the deer, which was dead already, killed by somebody else, who probably heard me coming and thought it was you, and fled before I got there, before you got there too." Well, that's not a very likely story, I told him. But on the other hand, I really don't see any way to disprove it. I looked at the men around me, none of whom was saying anything. I said, "I'm inclined to say that since we can't avow that this boy is the culprit, it's better to err on the side of compassion." Penrod looked about to object, so I added, "But neither can we be seen to let people flaunt the law. Still, killing this boy serves no purpose. The deer was already dead. Whether by his doing or another's, his death will not bring that deer back. Cutting off the boy's hand off would only make him unlikely to find gainful employment, and it'll become a drain on our society. If we jailed him, we'll have to feed him and take guards off their regular duty in order to watch him. I think the best solution is to put him to work for a period of, let's say a month." I looked at Rawdon. "What do you think?" "It sounds fair to me," Rawdon said weakly. Interesting, Kendrick said, whether at my line of reasoning or Rodon's response. Captain, you decide what chores you would think would be best to set for this boy. Keep in mind his age and his strength, but assign him whatever duties you see fit. Penrod nodded. He ordered the other guard, bring him to the crew that's fixing the smithy roof. Meanwhile, I said to Penrod, as the second guard led the boy away, I want you to come to me if there are any problems you or the other guards have had with the way anything is done here. Yes, Princess, Penrod said. Anything, I repeated. You and your men are the backbone of this castle. The work you do is invaluable, and I see that you run things smoothly, efficiently, and fairly, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you. Thank you, Princess, Penrod said. You know what? I turned to Rodon. Here we are, starting a new kingship with a new way of interpreting the laws, and I think something else we need to do is give a better salary to our hard-working guards. What do you think, Rodon? Well, Rodon huffed, but that was all he could get out. I smiled at Penrod. How much and how often do you get paid? Actually, he said, there seems to be a problem with that lately. We have been shorted several times the last few months, and we haven't been paid for the past fortnight. Really? I said. Kendrick was already looking at Rodon, so I turned to him too. Who's in charge of the men's pay? I demanded. You see, Rodon told me, as the king was getting weaker these past months, I began to worry that someone might take advantage of the situation. And once the king named you his heir, I thought, well, but the king's wife and son and her sons might refuse to acknowledge the king's wishes. And I thought, if they have access to the king's treasury, there's no telling. Kendrick took a hold of Rodon by the scruff of his neck. Have you done something with the treasury? No, that is, I just moved it for safekeeping. Where? Kendrick demanded. I didn't mean that I mistrusted you, Rodon assured Kendrick. Of course, I knew you wouldn't try to make off with the money, but sometimes your brothers... Kendrick gave him a shake. Fairfield, Rodon admitted. Kendrick shook him even harder. How much did you steal? I asked, because in this lifetime there was no way for me to know. No. All of it? No, just some, just a little, he said as he thought my question was ridiculous. Uh-huh, I said. You've seen my mercy on the boy accused of poaching. I will spare your life too if you show us where you've hidden the treasury. You'll be dismissed as my counselor and instead be put in charge of... Always something bad, but not so horrible he'll rebel. I thought of our neighbors in St. John and finished, in charge of raising the pigs. Rodon dropped to his knees, kissed my hand, and said, Thank you, your gracious highness. Good job, princess, Captain Penrod said to me. Yes, Kendrick acknowledged. Was he actually looking at me with respect? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. Surprise respect, but still, I said. Penrod, you take Rodon and keep him under guard, while Kendrick and I determine how much of the treasury is gone. Penrod saluted, while Kendrick held his hand out for Rodon's keys. I said, and Penrod, the Queen mentioned the possibility of a barbarian unrest. My instincts tell me that this is a very serious danger. Double the guards around the castle wall and make sure everyone is alert. Yes, princess. As Kendrick and I turned back to the castle, I just barely caught a glimpse of Sister Mary Ursula as she re-entered ahead of us. Apparently, if I didn't simply let the poacher go, she didn't approach me. Either that or the fact that I was with Kendrick kept her away. As Kendrick and I turned back to the castle, Who was that? I asked, since in this lifetime I hadn't met her yet. That is the singular Sister Mary Ursula, Kendrick told me, and I let it go at that. Naturally, when we got to the treasury room, there was quite a bit more than some of it missing. All that was left was what he could make off in one day. The first thing I think we should do is put Sir Deming in charge of counting exactly how much is left, I said. Obnoxious irritant that he was, and I had no reason to doubt his honesty. And Sister Mary Ursula had made clear her distrust and disliking of gold. For all I knew, she might toss what is left into the lake to make the gold one with the water. Then I want the guards paid, and I want them to get bonuses for their salaries being late, because the last thing we need is to lose credibility with them. Then we need to get the wagons and guards to travel to Fairfield to retrieve the money. How many? Kendrick asked. I'll leave that up to you, I said, to make him feel I valued his opinion. If he suggested something significantly different from what Penrod had in previous game, I could always overrule him. And will you go to Fairfield yourself? Kendrick asked. Or will you send a representative? Well, what do you suggest? I asked. I don't care. Okay. Well then, I told him, I'll probably go. I didn't think anything was scheduled to happen at the castle in the afternoon that I would miss. All I had done the previous time was get cleaned up and fitted with that awful red dress. Then I lost a lot of time searching the catacombs, running back and forth to the castle. Oh yeah, the catacombs. I suddenly remembered the ghost. But if I didn't go, the ghost wouldn't be able to follow me. Surely that's a good thing. But I worried that, without me, the game would arrange for something to happen so that whomever I sent wouldn't be able to find the money. We went back to the courtyard to assure Penrod that there was enough money left in the treasury to pay back the salaries. Though I could see extra guards posted, I remained alert for barbarians. Glancing back and forth and over my shoulder, I was fairly certain Rasmussen would have them get in even if I ordered all the guards out. Kendrick finally asked, Is something wrong? You seem to be doing an awful lot of twitching. I couldn't admit what I knew, so I said, Please. Charming. Kendrick sighed. Sure enough, when we got to the wagon, I saw a shadow that shouldn't be there. I shoved Kendrick out of the way, hit the ground rolling, and I yelled, Attack! We're under attack! And that's the end of this chapter.